Hey guys, I'm excited to share my newfound friend Nicole Kerr has a lot of similarities to Barb and I went to the Air Force Academy and that's a huge part of her story. But let me read her bio quickly for you. And you can find all this at Nicole Kerr, Kerr.com. And she's an award-winning health expert and best-selling author of You Are Deathless. Nicole Kerr has appeared on CNN, PBS, CBS, ABC, the Food Channel, host of other TV and radio shows to share her unique perspective on wellness, nutrition, spirituality. For the past 30 years, Nicole has worked in all sectors of society, including government, nonprofit, military, academy, healthcare institutions, hospitals, corporate settings, and private consults. Today, she is pursuing her vocation as an eternality advocate and public speaker. She's a 100% disabled veteran from the Air Force, registered dietitian, nutritionist, NET practitioner, and her favorite credential is, I have to be careful on this one. I almost say other things, BTDT, been there, done. So, but I want to share something really unique that is going on right now. This is how I found Nicole. Her story was just put on the YouTube channel of Near Death Experiences and about 200,000 views in the last 11, 12 days, guys. And at the moment, her book, You Are Deathless, is she's a top 1% seller on Amazon book sales. So congratulations, Nicole. That's exciting.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it only took me 41 years to build up to that overnight success, right?
But you've gone viral.
Yes, I have. I've broken into the YouTube viral network, and I've gone international. So actually, it's the site is The Other Side. So it's on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it. But it's a pictorial, and it's just me talking about the my experience. So it goes in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, it's fantastic, guys. And let me just show you something that Nicole and I were just talking about. This is what really started the whole journey. I guess we start the journey we already know in our mother's womb because we're all knowing, but her story, and she can share this a little bit. And so this was 1983 on a road that Barb and I, as Nicole as well, have traveled thousands of times, Northgate Boulevard, but that's she was sitting right there. Is that right, Nicole?
That's exactly right. That's the passenger side of a 1965 Corvette convertible. And the top was down and it didn't have seat belts. So thank God we were thrown out of the vehicle, because you can see on the second picture down there, it wound up flipping. It hit a huge boulder and flipped and landed on the top. So we would have definitely been crushed to death, although I was already pronounced dead. So I guess you could say I was expired at the scene, and the driver had minimal injuries, but was also found to be DUI. So it was a squadron function. We were coming back from it. I was catching a ride with the senior. I didn't know, just to get a ride back. And he had another agenda, which I was completely unaware of, which involved stopping at a bar, having a couple of beers and a cigarette. And then he wanted to make out. And I come from Mississippi. I was raised in a real protective environment. The South, for those of you who haven't been down there, the Bible Belt is very religious, lots of sweet tea, and they sugarcoat a lot of things and then throw the other stuff in the deep fat fryer. So it's a state that has, I think it's the highest poverty ratio there. But I grew up with it. My dad was one of the earlier graduates of the Air Force Academy and then went into the Marine Corps. So it was his way or the highway, very dogmatically positioned, very controlling personality, and you did what you were told. And so in order to please my father, I followed his footsteps into the Air Force Academy. They had just started admitting women when I was selected, and a lot of abuse was going on, and just the hazing, and I just lived in constant fear. So I went growing up from fearing God and fearing my father to fearing the upperclassmen in the military. So fear has been driving my nervous system for my whole upbringing, my whole childhood and into most of my adulthood. And as you probably are very aware, fear is a very low vibration. And when you're in fear and in worry all the time, you're so dense with that spirit can't break through to get messages to you. So that is what I found on the other side, was this message that was given to me, and that what is my mission today is to tell people not to be afraid of death. And it may seem like a very simple message, but it's taken me 41 years to actually align and embody and articulate what that message actually means. And remember, because my memory of that crash that you saw actually did not come back for 19 more years. The only memory I had of the wreck when I woke up at Penrose Community Hospital, so it's no longer there now, but not the main hospital, the community hospital, was this white, bright light. And I'm just going to read real quickly what I wrote in the book about it. Rays of brilliant white light flooded me from all sides. Streams of light cocooned me, wrapping every part of my being in a chrysalis of soothing waves. Instead of the pain of impact, I felt rocked and held. This was bliss. And on the other side of death, for me, when I left my body, God had been all around me. God was in me, God was me, and I was God. God was presence and fullness and oneness. Most of all, God was love. In that pure, no strings attached, open arms love. And in that state, I had not suddenly received forgiveness from a stern father for my mistakes. My mistakes, quote, just didn't exist, and they never had. Nothing I had done on earth needed to be weighed or measured. The life I had left behind just told a story, yes, but just one of many I have lived in different realms. I honestly felt like I was an astronaut floating in outer space, full of awe and wonder and reverence. And just to tell you about the word fear, if you look back in the 1600s, the word fear actually meant awe and reverence. And almost, I would say 90% of the NDE stories that I have heard, we all describe this presence of God, this white light, the energy that we were in, this presence of, that's what we were. We were in awe and reverence of this being, this energy, this presence, this intelligence, whatever you want to call God, source, higher power, whatever it is. What I can tell you, it is not Santa Claus keeping a record of what you're doing good and bad, okay? Because newsflash, there's no judgment on the other side.
That's so huge. That is so huge.
I mean,
that is so
no, it is huge because we were always taught that we were going to be judged and that there was a hell, and that, I mean, the Baptists, and I grew up Baptist and Lutheran, the Baptists go off their nutters about burning up in hell and, you know, the wrath of God coming on you. And it scared the wee out of you as a kid. So you not only feared God and his 10 commandments, each church had their own additional rules. Like the Baptists, you couldn't dance. So they were all making this up, but it was all designed to keep you in fear so that they could control you. And it is still going on today. And what I realized is I grew up with that concept, and it was what I call a vending machine concept, that if I just put in the right behaviors, punch the button, boom, prayed hard enough, that I would get what I asked for. And fear is, when you're in fear, let me just say this, you don't have clarity, because fear is coming from that part of your brain. If you guys can remember, maybe your biology class, the amygdala, the two little almond-shaped organs right here, that's fight, flight, freeze. I'm sure you experienced a lot of that at the Air Force Academy, Mike, right? as a dually, a lot of
Wasn't
fear.
as much fear for me as irritation. I'm probably like you. I just remember going, I can't believe I'm here. What am I doing here? Right?
Yeah. So what you want to do, that's your sympathetic system responding. You want to get in your parasympathetic, that part of your brain up here, your prefrontal cortex, which is interesting because when they were listing my injuries much later, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, they actually told me I had a head injury, and the brain scans up here said that my prefrontal cortex was not working right, and they don't understand how I could function so long in the workplace that I did, because it was impaired. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I didn't, they didn't have those kind of tests back then. They didn't have, what is it, traumatic brain injury. That wasn't a thing back in 1983. And clearly, when you go unconscious and you're pronounced dead, you would have a traumatic brain injury, right? You would have a lot more other things going on. But yeah, so this fear concept, you don't have clarity. And when you don't have clarity, when you're operating from the back of your brainstem, you're going to be filled with the inability to make the decisions for you that would be you're in your highest and greatest good. And you're going to be wanting to control other people and fix other people because you're in fear. And you forget that God and the universe are working for you, not against you. When you're in fear, you think everything is happening to you instead of for your highest and greatest good. So there's so many reasons to unwind these layers and get at that root of why you may fear death. And for many people, it starts with the religious upbringing that they had, where God was presented as dual. He was loving and protective and there for you on one side, but then there were all these rules, and he could be punishing, judgmental, and the wrath of God could come on you if you broke these rules. So you lived in fear, and you weren't thinking that God was going to be there for you. And if he didn't show up for you, then you did something wrong. It's like in the vending machine, if you press the button for Coke and a Mountain Dew comes out, well, that was your fault, right? It's not the machine's fault, it's your fault. So it's been a huge journey for me, going from a near-death experience. And I actually call it back from death, because I was pronounced clinically dead. I was at the scene when the first responders got there. It was about 10 to 13 minutes after the initial call came in. And so I had a blanket over me, covered up. And it wasn't until a first responder came over, took a second look, and did something called a sternal knuckle press, which is designed to elicit pain in the body, that he could get any vitals at all on me. The bystanders couldn't get any vitals. So they went ahead and just thought I was dead, which by all accounts I was. And the only thing he got out of me in terms of a sign of life, have you ever heard this saying, our eyes are the window to your soul? My right eye flinched and the pupil dilated. And at that moment, my soul, which had left my body when I went through the windshield, I knew I was going to die. My soul left my body and went to the other side, heaven, whatever you want to call it. An angel came and took me over there. But when he started doing that sternal knuckle press, my soul came back in through that right eye. And at that point, he was able to get a blood pressure on me of 60 over 0. Now, normal is 120 over 80, so that's still life and death. Then they got the mask pants on me, the first time that they had ever used these things, which was designed to push all my blood up to my vital organs. I cut my left foot off, severed my wrist, my pelvis. I was in horrible condition. And then they did CPR on me for the entire 20 minutes to the nearest hospital. And at that point, they were just trying to get me stable, and then just keep me alive. And it took them all night to do that. And then I was on a rocky road for the next 4 months, 7 weeks in intensive care and 4 months in the hospital, and actually had 2 more near-death experiences in the hospital. So I can tell you, I did not want to come back, hence me trying to go back a couple of more times, because I knew, you guys, I could see my body from the other side, and I did not want to get back in that body. I could see it in the ditch. I could clearly remember what clothes I had on. And I just knew it was going to be pain and suffering on a physical level, trying to rehab from this accident, not knowing if I'd ever be able to walk again or even go to the bathroom on my own again, because they had to divert my stools in a colostomy operation. Simple things like that we take for granted, that we can get up and go to the bathroom on our own. This is a 19-year-old, waking up from surgery with a colostomy. Okay. I'd never had sex before. And the only thing I think of is, oh my God, my bowels are hanging out of my, my body here, and how repulsed I was by that, So I have to tell you, I thought boot camp was hard. I thought survival training was hard. It was nothing compared to recovering from this car crash. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's you're exactly right. Siri seems like a walk in the park compared to what you went through. To say that you're alive is nothing short of miraculous is really very true. And
Yeah, and I
yeah,
will
go
tell
ahead.
you, my doctor, she's now retired, but Dr. Amy Lou Stewart, she was the first female surgeon in Colorado Springs. The woman is a maverick, the first female in her medical college at Jefferson College of Medicine in Philadelphia. And she told me, she said, Nicole, you were the first person I've ever seen have a near-death experience. And she said, I knew when you woke up, we pronounced you dead on the operating table. That was the second one. And, call time of death on you. And then 2 minutes later, your heart starts up again. And the night they brought you in, that you survived that, she said it was something beyond me and the medical staff. It was supernatural. It was greater than medicine or drugs or anything could do. And that's kind of what you hear the term resurrected, and I just had heard it with Jesus being resurrected. But a lot of near death people have had that happen to them where they have been clinically dead and they come back, and it's not of their own willpower or ability to do it themselves. It's something greater than themselves that intervenes at a supernatural level and causes the body to start up again, gets that life force energy, that soul part of you back in your body to get you breathing again. And you can't make yourself do that. I don't care how superhuman you are. You're not going to be able to do that. That has to be something outside of you. And John, the EMT, did win the Phoenix Award, which is the First Responders Award in Colorado Springs for somebody who has um, saved somebody from a clinical death. So he had 2 documentations of that, and I still stay in touch with him today. He lives out in Monument, and he's just an incredible human being. But yeah, it's a lot.
You said something I think that's so key, and maybe you can share um, when you said you experienced this God, not that he forgave your sins, there never were any. There was zero judgment and perfect love. And how that changed once you understood that, or how you tried to live your life now. I think if people can pick that up now, as you said, Nicole, they don't have to live in that low energy of fear, guilt, shame. God is 100% unconditional love, meaning no conditions.
That's why I say open arms, come. There's no restriction on it whatsoever. And yeah, and I will say this about what's on the other side. You will see deceased loved ones. There are angels over there, there's spirit guides, but you'll also see your pets. And the reason I bring the pets up is for some people, that's the only unconditional love that they've ever had from another uh, being, whether it's a human or a sentient being. So that's the only love that they would be able to relate to, being unconditional. So they will be on the other side, and they do have souls and spirits. And I know a lot of people think that's a controversial statement, but they will be there. I can tell you that 100%. And regarding the judgment, shame is probably the lowest vibration. So if you find yourself saying the word should, I should do this, or I should have told him that, or I should have been there, please take that word out of your vocabulary. Okay. Just exit out that and the word try. Okay. Just quit using both of those words. They're low, low, low energy, but that causes shame every time you say, I should have done this. You're making the best choices you can today based on where you're at and your belief systems. And all of our belief systems are evolving. That's what we come here to do, is our soul's evolution and to learn these lessons. And if you can quit judging yourself, because we are usually the hardest on ourselves than anybody else is on us, that would raise yours and everybody around you, their vibration. I can't even tell you how many fold, 10-fold, 100-fold, but it is significant. And the other thing is, when people say, what's your purpose? I said, okay, well, I know mine. It was given directly to me. It's to tell people not to be afraid of death and some of these other lessons. But if you just know that love is all that matters and is the source of all that exists, That in itself was your purpose, to love yourself unconditionally. So no shaming about if you're 10 pounds overweight, or, like I was so embarrassed from all these scars on my body. I had a lot of plastic surgery done because our society is very, their beauty standards are all physical, the outside, how that looks. It's not about your insides. So I was really had low self-esteem after the car wreck and was trying to minimize the scars as much as possible, instead of realizing that it's all internal. And it's the same thing with God. God is not external. And we get taught that we have to look externally for things, for approval, for God, for all of these things. And all the answers are within, including God. God is within all of us. Whatever you want to call it, is an eternal spark. We all have this eternal spark of God within us. That's why when you say namaste to someone, the God in me meets the God in you. You connect to that force, that energy, that connection right away with that person, and you know who they are in that soul form. But unfortunately, we get spiritual amnesia when we're born, and we forget who we are, that we're these magnificent, eternal, radiant, glorious creatures, and there's not one dang thing wrong with us.
I share that all the time. That's why I wanted to have you on, because sometimes even now people think, because I go back into the original Greek and Hebrew pictographs as we were talking about, and I go, there, you were born in perfection, guys.
Yeah.
And you said something in your book briefly that maybe you can be fun to talk about. You talked about the Dalai Lama,
Mhm.
and somebody had told him about Western theology, this concept of the original sin, and that if we weren't allowed to use our brain growing up, Nicole, because we were the fear of God. You can't even question the pastor, the God, your parents, or whoever, anybody in a kind of power,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Your teachers, your coaches. It was one thing to get in trouble in school, then you got to wait till you get home to your mom and dad, and that was worse, right?
Yeah.
And then God
Absolutely.
above all that. So anyway, this concept that you're born in perfection and there's no original sin, that's the Western theology most of the people that'll hear this grew up with. And the Dalai Lama didn't grow up with that. And in your book, you said this is somebody had posed the question and told them about original sin, that they were born flawed, born separated from God, and it literally took him 3 days to even process what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because the truth, what you saw on the other side is very different than you're flawed, you're separated from God. Um,
You're a sinner. You're
you're a
bad. Yeah.
sinner, you're a dirty, rotten sinner. I was talking about that. You're not deserving because you made mistakes. It kind of goes back to what you were saying, or you wish you would have done something differently, or wish you had not done something. That is non-existent.
Yeah.
So just your what you saw, and share with people not what you saw, what you experienced, because I think you experienced it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there was, like I said earlier, there were no mistakes to be had. It's all an illusion, and we get so caught up in, I made this horrible mistake. We all come in here to this planet to evolve, and we all have a lesson to learn. Okay. And all of us are at different stages in our soul's evolution. And you think about a baby that you've seen that kind of looks older, and you call it an old soul. Oh, that baby has an old soul. You know that term?
yeah,
Yeah. They already, their eyes are intense. They're coming out with a full head of hair. I mean, they're older, and they've been on this journey before, and they're coming through again to learn and to raise their vibration and their soul's evolution. Then you have other babies that are born that look like the little Gerber baby that's all just full cheeks, and there's nothing old about them at all. They're like brand new to this, and coming in here to experience this lifetime and the lessons. So our souls, and this is something I was never taught growing up. We weren't even allowed to think about incarnations and how many times our soul would incarnate. But that does happen. And that's why you go over to the other side and you have a life review. There is no judgment, because the terms bad and good are earth terms. Man created those terms in order to evaluate ourselves and other people. They do not translate or transfer to the other side. They don't exist over there. Everything is beyond brilliant, beautiful, loving, kindness, peaceful, everything that you can imagine. The colors, there are more colors than there are for women that you go into the beauty parlor and you get your your nails done, all those beautiful colors. There's more than that over there. Okay. The colors that we can't even fathom exist are over there. And what I can tell you is on the other side as well is in our human bodies, our eyes have about right in front of us and maybe 40 degrees periphery on either side. Up there, when you're in soul form, if you think of, in the book, I call him Casper the Friendly Ghost. And it's kind of like that image of translucent transparency, but has an outline. That is what I experienced on the other soul, meeting up with those angels. And I could see all around me 360 and into the future all at once. So now I didn't speak English over there because you don't have a voice and mouth to speak English like we do here. You communicate through telepathy and through vibration. You get it. But I want to tell people is the spirit realm, there's a very thin veil between us here and the spirit realm. And there are angels, there are spirit guides, your deceased loved ones, ascended masters, archangels. There's an entire company over there ready, willing, and able to help us, but we have to ask for help. We have to ask the angels for help. We all have at least one guardian angel with us. Some of us have more. And you need to start developing a relationship with your angels. You just like you have a relationship with your inner self, with God, creator, whatever that is, with your spouse. It's about having a connection with that realm and asking for help. And I know people think I am crazy asking for a parking place from the angels, but every time I do it, Mike, I get a parking space, and I believe in prayer. Prayer is an energy form. It's sending energy, but you need to be conscious and mindful of what you're praying for and not just what you think you want for somebody else. I pray for the most part for their highest and greatest good. And that might be for them to pass on. You may want them to hang on and stay in this realm, but it may not be for their highest and greatest good. And I can tell you, after being on a ventilator and being unable to swallow and eat, all these things, sometimes you just would rather pass on, if you're elderly, and just think you've lived your life here, let these people go. Don't try to keep them here. It's not about you. It really is about them. And so that's how I pray now. But prayer works. It's important. And it's a great tool.
Yeah, I think that's another important reason to let go of these, to recognize when you're in fear, guilt, shame, and they're pretty easy we talk about this a lot, Nicole. They're pretty easy to figure out because they don't feel good naturally.
Yeah.
Because the fact that naturally that we're perfect, we're whole, we're perfectly loved. We're literally how I try to describe it. We try to describe these spiritual things that you experienced in human terms, and it gets messy pretty fast, but you're this infinite spirit of God in a human body that God chose to be you to have a human experience so that we can have a God experience.
That's right. Yeah.
And so when you're feeling these lower vibrations, these lower energies of fear, guilt, and shame, it's a pretty natural process to recognize them and go, oh, that's not the real me. The real me is perfect, whole, always has been. I can let that go. And and just start sharing, let love and this energy emanate out of you. If you want to share anything like that's how we teach a lot of the people what prayer really is this, it's the life flow in through you, around you, that touches all things at once when you magnify it out of your heart area, really.
Right. And that's about expansion of your heart. And that's what happens as you continue to love yourself more. Your heart expands more. And I will tell you, here's another brain alert, whatever. There is no prayer position. Okay. We're told you have to put your hands together, you have to bow your head, you have to be on your knees, and you have to be at the foot of your bed. Okay. Let me tell you, the prayer position is just that. Somebody created this position to say that's the most effective way for your prayers to get up to God. But that's bullshit. Okay. I'm
Glad you
sorry.
said that. No, it's good. I'm glad because I say that I usually this you'll see this. Somebody that know me, they know this. They go because people ask that like, well, do you get your? I get it if you're into yoga and different things. They teach these different things, but they go, well, how do you pray? This is what I do, Nicole. I go like this. I put my feet up. And I go, if I'm
Yeah.
an eternal spirit, it really doesn't care what my body position is.
No, no, not at all. And, I connect more with that true uh, presence of creator in nature. I
Yes.
think when you're in, in the ocean, in the water is emotion in Chinese medicine. So that's why the other thing I wanted to say is beware of taking on other people's emotions that they won't feel and being responsible for those emotions. They're not yours to begin with, so don't own them. And that's something that a lot of people do is if somebody, especially a narcissist, will not take responsibility for a situation, then you take it on because you go, well, somebody has to be responsible here. So you take it on and it's not yours to begin with. So you have to get rid of those layers and doing things like taking a bath or a shower. The water helps move that energy off of you. And just to say, I release all emotions and energy that are not mine, and get them off of you because otherwise they cling on to you and they pull you down and it's unconscious. You don't even know that you're doing it, but especially if you have the identity of a people pleaser, which is what I grew up with and most people grew up with. You got to put that identity to death. Okay. It really has to die because it doesn't serve you or anybody else. You are pretzeling yourself into any position in order to please them, to give them what they want to hear and do instead, because you don't want to feel conflict. You don't want to hurt them. You were taught not to hurt your parents, or anything like that. But here's the deal. You're not being authentic. You're not being true to yourself and you're not expressing your own voice. And when you do that, consistently over the years, by the time you're 50, you're going to start developing physical illnesses that the doctors can't figure out what's going on because you have suppressed all of these emotions. Just saying.
Yeah, no, we talk about that a lot, that lower energy, even some of well, I have different views on different things, probably very similar to yours, but most of our physical ailments, not when you have trauma like yours, where you're in an accident, but a lot of the things, like you said, as you quote unquote age, are lack of energy to the cells because of that lower energy, guilt, shame that they've carried their whole life.
Exactly. And so it's time now to kick in here in your awareness and take an action to peel back these layers of these belief systems and let go of the ones that are not serving you anymore. But here's
Yeah.
another great lesson from all the NDEs. Everyone and everything is connected. And we need to remember that in terms of the way we're treating Mother Earth. We need to remember that the way we treat all sentient beings and the way we treat one another. And especially with this election coming up, where everyone is very polarized and there's a lot of hate and a lot of fear and a lot of vitriol. This is about coming together for our greatest and highest good and letting light shine through instead of darkness and fear and control and greed and corruptness. So I think if you understand, one thing I did learn in the military is we all bleed red. It doesn't matter what we look like on the outside, what our sexual preferences, anything like that. We all bleed red. We are all oneness. And that is the main lesson, if I can leave you with anything, is that on the other side, it is about love and oneness.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that up because we talk about that a lot in this forum, in this group, that God is not for one candidate or another.
No,
God,
and he
God is.
is not starting any wars. Those are all throughout history. That has all been man-made. They use God, just like people today use Jesus, as selective recall on what he said, and then even fine-tune that to their own liking, and put it out there as the truth. So you have to really, like you have done, the research, be well read. Tune yourself to different news stations or sources, be more open-minded, and be aware that there is a bigger cosmic consciousness at play here. I know when someone dies, I understand that we're physical and we're spiritual, and we have to balance both of those. And when someone dies, you are going to have to deal with your human feelings of grief, loss, suffering, sorrow, and to do that with compassion and help hold and heal that person. But when you look at that bigger cosmic context, it's benevolent.
Yep.
And it's extraordinary. And you know that when you know that, you will live a happier life, and your own passing will be much more graceful, and you can support others in their passing because you know that greater beauty, love, kindness, you go back home to that. It never dies.
Yeah. How are you doing on time? You got a couple more minutes? I want to respect your
Sure,
time.
sure. Yeah, I got the rest of the night with you, Mike.
All right.
We'll have a Friday
I just,
night dinner.
I appreciate you getting on. That's why I want to respect your time too. You know what's so fascinating? The one thing that you talk about a lot in your book, and uh, is death is nothing to be feared. And what's really fascinating when I really dug in tens of thousands of hours understanding the Hebrew and Greek, I was on the journey like you, different, but all trying to find the same thing. What is
Yes.
our oneness with God? What is this all about, right? And what's fascinating in the original Hebrew and Greek texts, they weren't even texts. They weren't written in spoken languages initially. They were literally hieroglyphics. They were pictures. And death to them was the sign of the covenant between you and God had been completed. The seed has been released.
It's
Isn't that
beautiful.
wild? It's
Yeah.
beautiful. So it's really fascinating uh like you said, you experience this bliss. You're more alive than in this earthly skin suit that the scriptures call our tabernacle, the house of God. You're the house of God. I share that. It gets controversial. I go, but the house of God has never been purchased by a church growth fund. God designed you in the womb.
Yeah. No one owns God, that.
It's so funny, isn't it? Like, oh, okay. I laugh like you do. I have to laugh or I'll cry. Right?
Well, but these are beliefs that were, I mean, they were like
I know.
branded, like we were cattle into us. And it really, to understand that our true selves are perfect and we are loved more than we can fathom, it's really kind of mind blowing when you grew up with conditional love, and or you have a partner now who is conditional in the relationship, and you think that by going to church that's going to fix that. And I've had clients come in and they're just like, it didn't fix it. And I'm like, that's because you can't fix another person. This is about your journey, your soul's evolution, your healing process, and you have to do the work. And I'm telling you, transformation is work. It is not an easy process. You have to go back, and especially if you suffered trauma and have buried it and repressed it, and you've got to work through that in order to get your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit aligned and integrated and embody that whole energy, emotion, and fullness and concept of what you think God is. In fact, I want to read real quick when you're talking about God. I interviewed I had a little 6-year-old client that I did with NET, and she was wetting to bed and she was adopted. And her mother said, do you think you can help her? And I said, well, let me just try. So I asked her, I said, how do you see God? And she eagerly said to me, God is a blue spirit with colors and balloons in all different colors, no head, and can talk. Now, she's coming from a very fundamentalist church, okay, that is telling her if she's not doing something, she's going to lose her adoptive parents. Now, that's the worst thing you can do for a kid, right? Is to say that you're going to be abandoned by them, but that's what they were doing. And so, here's a 6-year-old. She gets it. It's a blue spirit, colors and balloons in all different colors, which I think goes perfectly with my experience of all the colors over there. No head, and can talk. So she's hearing the messages, that intuition in her. And, my story of God, your story of God, her story of God, they're probably, like you said, none of our stories are going to look exactly the same, just like no NDE story is going to be exactly the same. But whether you are new to this or spent a lifetime already in your spiritual pursuit of God, none of us are going to reach the end. It's continually evolving. But the idea that I'm trying to present to everybody is, and I'm sure most of you, if you're following Pastor Mike here, is to start.
I don't even call myself pastor.
Okay.
No, other people do. I go, no, 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 I'm just Mike, guys.
Mike the guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly right.
Um,
I just went on my own journey, and fortunately, a lot of people wanted to participate. So
well,
that's who
and that's
I
just
am.
it, is to
Yeah.
start becoming aware, asking the questions, what's working for you, what doesn't work for you, what makes sense. I mean, a lot of this stuff is common sense as well, just like in our political and our entire world landscape about gun control or whatever. A lot of this is common sense, but we somehow have gotten away from common sense because we've gotten away from who we truly are. And if we could get back to that and that love concept, we wouldn't have to be making more rules and laws and, causing more boundaries to have to exist.
Yeah, yeah, wow, there's so much packed in there. Um, no, it's exactly what we share all the time. It's a lot of the things we were taught, even about Jesus and the church, and um, God had to kill his own son. There's no such thing. There's no love doesn't even there's love doesn't even conceive of that. Like, I understand in my human love that I can love my other kids and not have to slaughter somebody if one of them messes up. It doesn't
Yeah.
affect me, right? That's like common sense, but you're not allowed to say that. In fact, that's blasphemy, and now you're not going to heaven, right?
Well, get a load of this. So, Adam and Eve had two kids, Cain and Abel. How did they populate?
Oh, we talk about this all the time, Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that,
Not good
like,
options, right? Either not
yeah, you got your mom?
a little creepy, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, a
So,
little creepy. No, we talk about that a lot. I'm glad. So what she's doing, guys, is her experience of God. I promise you, everybody's going to have a different experience because of your culture and everything else, but it's going to be 1,000 times better if you were than what you were taught in religion,
oh,
because religion
absolutely.
divides, and God is every religion too. He's involved in everything.
And
He's just not the negative
any
side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and any organization or church or anybody that's trying to tell you that God is about fear, I'm sorry, that is not the truth. God is love. And when they start down that road, just walk away or change the subject or just get out of that conversation, because you're never going to win with a religious addict. I have two parents that are religious addicts, and you just are not going to win an argument. So don't even go down that road to begin with.
Yeah.
And our society needs to change, and that's part of my mission, is to change the narrative around death from this doom and gloom to one of beauty and love and just light, loving kindness, and that is peace that passes all understanding, that we can have that peace in our heart, now, today, and not be triggered and pulled in all different directions. That's the part you have to keep continually working on. But death is the only shared experience that we have left. It used to be McDonald's, but that's not anymore. That was that death in McDonald's and taxes, maybe. But well, a lot of people get out of taxes, and McDonald's has tons of competition with Chick-fil-A nowadays. So death is the only shared experience we have left. So let's start changing the narrative around that and start educating our children as well about what death is. It's a normal part of life. And what I also say is, if you are a single parent and you have young children and you've lost a spouse, or like in my sister's case, her husband died when her kids were 10 and 13 from ALS. And the youngest one said, Mom, are you going to die too? And of course, you don't want your child to worry, but you need to be age appropriate with them, because no one is guaranteed tomorrow. So for her to say, no, I'm not going to die, you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to be fine. I take care of myself. I'm healthy. It's going to be fine. She doesn't she doesn't know that for sure. So a more appropriate, like I said, depends on the age of the child, but to tell them no one's guaranteed tomorrow. Any of us can die, but I don't think it's going to happen to me, but if it should happen, here's what's going to happen. Your sister, Aunt Nicole, and Uncle James are going to take care of you. You're going to have to move to another state and get in another school, but you're not going to have to worry about money. You're going to be, and give them a path forward, because if something happened to you and you were, somehow couldn't make choices anymore, or in a hospital on a ventilator or something from a car crash, you just never know, then they are not worrying and stressed out trying to figure out what to do next and thinking it's 10 years old, I should be the man of the house now because I've lost mommy and daddy. So it's important, not that you want to scare them, but be honest that we need to all realize that none of us are guaranteed tonight or tomorrow on this planet, and to stay in the present moment. And if we could stay in the present moment and have that top of mind that I may never see you again, Mike. So in that moment, I'm going to be kind to you. I'm going to be thoughtful, considerate, loving, and leave the relationship that way and hope I'll see you again. But if I don't, it was left with that loving, what do I want to say? Wrap around. Does that make sense?
100%. Is it life-giving or subtraction? If it's life-giving, that's all about God. It's one thing that's interesting on that, and we'll wrap it up here shortly just to respect your time, but I've had this with a lot of people because, with thousands of people in your life, death is a very natural thing. It happens all the time. And as you experienced, we're eternal. So even if mom and dad, the spouse, they leave this tent suit, you can still communicate with them.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think that's very reassuring. I've had that, when there's been what's the term I'm looking for? Like when the people think it's not the right timing of death. The word's skipping me. Like young kids, or maybe a spouse died too early, too young, whatever. In our time frame, it's too young, and we've shared with them all the time and said, you know what? They're still present. They're more present than they've ever been, and you can communicate with them. And I can't tell you how many times, Nicole, my sister, my friends, they go, you know what happened in this dream? Or they're trying to figure out if it was a dream or they were just in this alpha theta state. They told me all about it, and it was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always just heart reassuring, guys, who God is and this eternal life that you're going to experience. Can I ask you one more thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. I promise I got the gift of gab sometimes. I promise this will be the last one, Nicole. This concept that God is for you and you can ask for help is a very real thing. Yes?
Yes.
And it's very interesting because if you read the book, guys, which I'd recommend you do, Let's Keep Her Up There in the Top 1%. I think it's cool. Of course, love is for you. Of course, love wants you to win more than yourself, but we do have free will. We're so powerful that we can take on concepts that we can limit that. But why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just let the limitless power, the love of all life source, all creation help you?
Yeah. Well, and that is one of the lessons, is loving ourselves and others is the single most important thing any of us can do. And when we have our life review, because we will all have that on the other side, you're not going to be judged, but this is where everything that we have thought, said, and done on this planet, we're going to be shown how it impacted ourselves, others, and the world. So you do need to be mindful of your words you say to others, of your actions toward others, Mother Earth, and all sentient beings, and your thoughts, okay? Because your thoughts will manifest. So be aware of that, because if you are doing these lessons now, your life review on the other side is going to be much shorter, because you're going to be you've already worked through most of these, okay? And you've gotten the concept that love is all that matters. We're not judged. We are never alone, okay? I know a lot of people thought they were alone when their loved ones passed, especially during COVID. But the spiritual realm is always there, always, even when we can't feel it, recognize it, or accept it. It has always been there. And that is probably one of the most powerful lessons I keep getting time and time again. We are always here, even if you think the situation is hopeless.
I think that's really important what you said, Nicole, this isn't judgment, guys, like, oh, look what you did wrong. It's more of, if you really knew who you are, you would always operate in love, and you're going to experience more and more life. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes, exactly. And that's the whole thing with the message. If you do not fear death, you're going to truly live life.
Yeah, amen. And you don't have to wait till you step out of the skin suit. Might as well
No,
learn
I don't recommend it.
3 times, right?
Yeah, it's a hard journey, and you come back and you are sensitive and you're transformed in so many ways, thank goodness. But it's also hard because I'm the black sheep of my family now, in terms of belief systems. And we want connection, and you've had to realize that you have to connect, you have to disconnect from certain sources or input that you have always gone to, and realize you have to reconnect to source, mainly yourself, and trust yourself. And so many of us have been taught so many times not to trust ourselves, not to go within. Everything was external, and it's all within. I'm not hearing you.
Oops, sorry, I accidentally hit
Okay.
audio. Sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to say, right before we sign off, I want to show this. This is the book, You Are Deathless. You can get it here or Amazon, whatever source you want to get it, Audible books. One thing you did share in there, like unfortunately, a lot of times the religious who are, if we took the scriptures in English, it says love your neighbor as yourself. Unfortunately, in Christianity, my experience is they love you as long as you have the same belief system as they do, and then they don't love
That's
you.
right. That's right.
But I think, like you said, yeah, it's conditional love. It's sadly, like, even though you're a black sheep of your mom and dad, would you say that their true nature, their true spirit knows and loves you, Nicole, perfectly?
Yes. And that's what I try to connect it, is who their true essence is, because they have been brought up and they have stayed in that lane of the belief system, and it has allowed them to survive the traumas and the wounds. They've had that real finite structure around them to give them answers that they believe are the truth, to explain away other things that have happened. And so they continue to go back to that instead of opening themselves up to a different way of being and seeing things and interpreting things in a different way. They're very literal with things, but that's how they've been able to survive, literally, and deal with life. Because back with our parents and before them, mental health was not an option or talked about for people. It was, and today it's become much more acceptable. Emotional healing, mental health, being able to express your emotions to anyone, parents or loved ones or whatever, and being able to embody and to claim your power back. I think that's it, is to understand how powerful we are, like you said, and to own our own power, and not have, my parents took my power away from me again at 19 when I went back to infancy. And I let them for decades still control me with what their belief systems were. And it has taken me a long time to unravel from that. It's a long journey, it really is, but it's who I am. And I had to reclaim that. And you have to disconnect before you can transform.
Yeah. Well, guys, Nicole Kerr, NicoleKerr.com, or you can go on Amazon and pick up her book. But appreciate you. It's awesome.
This is so great. I just have to say, Mike, thank you so much for reaching out. And your wife, Barb, is just delightful. And I'm so grateful for what you're putting out there to the world, the truth, your truth, and others are continually gravitating toward it, and to become aware and to evolve their own concept of God and to take their power back and be the being they were created to be.
Yeah, as she experienced, guys, and she writes about it in her book, you're deathless.
Yeah.
You're born in perfection. You're going to live in perfection. You're going to return to perfection. And God is for you, not against you. You can ask for help.
Absolutely.
The life creation, the source of life wants to help you and will help you, guaranteed. So anyway, appreciate you. God bless you. God bless your husband. And hopefully this won't be the last time we get to chat. Thank you.
Thank you.